welcome to your end of March 2017 Tarot Forecast Update. It's Rena here. Now this is a general focus, and if you're interested specifically in love issues, I do separate love readings, and they will be probably at the end of the next week, which probably doesn't mean much to you if you're watching in, the end of March, but I'm thinking like, around the 10th of March-ish, that time frame, mid-March, by mid-March. But anyway, I wanted to tell you just a couple of things before I lay out the cards. And one of them is that right now there's a Venus retrograde going on. And for you, it's starting in your 9th house and going back to your 8th house. So the 9th and the 8th houses are both, well, I was going to say they're both philosophical houses, but that's really not true, because the 8th house is more about, it's scorpionic, it's the house of Scorpio. So it's about life after death, metaphysical issues, the secrets of the universe. Conspiracy theories I would put in the 8th house. And the 9th house is more about, and sex and death and other people's money in addition to that. But the 9th house is more about organized religion. It's Sagittarius's house, so those kinds of issues. What else? Higher learning, religion versus metaphysics. But you can always say it's kind of metaphysics too. If you're learning about whatever, Hinduism, there's going to be metaphysics with any kind of even Christianity can have metaphysics in it. It's beyond the physical, and foreign travel and stuff like that. So you have this emphasis, because then at the end of March on the 27th, you have a new moon in Aries in that house. Plus the sun is going into Aries on the 20th. So that's emphasized for you, the 9th house. Publishing, advertising, writing, teaching, the whole enchilada. So those two, so Venus being in those two houses, it could be money issues related to, maybe even things that you want to do to make a living. But in the 8th house, when it goes back into the 8th house, Venus, and that won't be until the early part of April, it could be issues surrounding other people's money, and one of the biggies for the 8th house is inheritances. Okay, so on with the countdown. We will see what's happening. This is for a general focus. I am doing a modified Celtic cross spread for this particular reading, and I'm getting more comfortable with it, which is always nice, so I don't have to hem and haw when I'm trying to do this. I was just thinking about something. I think it was Sagittarius, and it was for the love reading, and I picked like all of the worst cards, and someone wrote to me and said, did you shuffle properly? Because if the 3 of Swords and the 10 of Swords all come up together, that's going to be because I didn't shuffle properly. So it was just kind of reminding me of that when I got that 10 of Swords. Yes, I did shuffle properly, but you know what? It's funny. Usually I put this first, but it doesn't matter. I'm going to still read it in the same thing. I'm going to think outside the box. And of course, the top card usually ends up being, hard to see, but we will work around that. I just want to be able to, yeah, that's not too shabby. Okay, so for Leo, now one thing I just want to kind of say, which is a little bit probably self-explanatory, but remember that this is supposed to be for the last half of March. Look at this as an overview symbolism, and don't get hung up on a time frame, because I always kind of chuckle to myself. I mean, it's a little bit silly to assume that, it's going to fall into, all these events are going to happen in a very short period of time. Stranger things have happened, but just see how much of it seems to be true for you at this time, or could possibly be true for you. So the theme of the late part of the month is moving away from troubled waters, choosing peace. Obviously, since this is general focus, this could be your love life, this could be your work life. When I see swords in general, because swords relate to air signs like Gemini, Libra, and Aquarius. Your opposite sign, Leo, is Aquarius, so sometimes you find yourself, maybe, I was going to say karmic relationships, but just, you may have an affinity for Aquarians, but whoever this person could be, when I see swords, I think of either air signs, but I also think of a lot of mental energy and strife. The swords are connected with strife. And it's so weird to me because each suit in the tarot represents the astrological elements. I'm sure some of you already know that, but some of you might not. So the swords relate to the air signs. Now, for the sword suit to be connected to kind of drama is kind of weird, because it's almost like prejudiced against the air signs in that way. And actually the air signs tend to dislike drama. But, and I have said this before, I find that especially with Libra, drama seems to follow them sometimes. I think in general, when people are afraid of their emotions, they tend to attract it because it's resistance. You have to be kind of fearless in relationships. But I think because swords relate to communication and thought, I think that's where a lot of our problems in life begin, is thinking too much on our own, in our own case, in our heads, obviously being too much in our heads, but also too much gossip and not enough meditation, too much outside activity chatter, especially nowadays with smartphones and people you can call people any time of day or night when you're out, and you never seem to have that time to yourself. And that's why I don't carry a cell phone with me when I go out, because I want to have time to myself. I don't want to be outside of myself. And so these kinds of things, you may feel like there's too much of that going on in your life and you're trying to get away. Now, it could be like you're moving. A lot of times, Six of Swords could be actual physical moving from one location to another. And maybe it doesn't mean that you're just, having a bad time right now. You just want to move. It could just be like physical relocation. But it can be like on the job. It can be that you're working in an inharmonious environment, or in your love life, of course. So I keep going, and then we fill in the blanks a little bit more. And one way is to look at the card that crosses, and it's the Ten of Swords. Now, I always say I read this as a reverse card, but it depends, because some cards are actually more positive in the reversed position. Ten of Swords in the upright position is probably the more, I don't know, maybe not. I guess it depends. I was going to say it's more negative in the upright position. But anyway, let me just interpret it as a challenge card, and that would be that it could be an air sign person who is the one, and it's kind of like clearing that up for me, that that is actually an air sign. If the person doesn't have a sun in an air sign, they have a general, signature, astrological signature. So they might have the moon, the rising sign, or maybe Venus and Mars. Some of these personal points that give them an analytical bent. They may be detached and dry and abstract, and they're not in touch with their feelings sometimes. That's how you can tell that kind of a person. And that person is the one that you're trying to get away from. And why would you get away from a person like that? Because being a Leo, you are a passionate person, and you may feel like this person is analyzing the joy out of life, and it could be on their end that you're just not syncing up in some way, and you don't feel emotionally fulfilled. Sometimes they can be too critical, and that feels like they're not loving you. And maybe they are afraid to tell you that they love you. Maybe they just can't do that. So there can be many reasons why you are not vibing with them. But it can be, the Ten of Swords is about betrayal. So the person may have cheated on you. And, they may have cheated on you before, but this was the last straw for some reason. Maybe the person they cheated on you with, or they just did it too many times. I was trying to think if Leo would tolerate being cheated on. I think sometimes possibly because of being a fixed sign, you may be adverse to, breaking off a relationship, even if somebody does you like that. I don't know. I was just thinking, I always say to people, my ego is too big to allow that, and I'm just honest about it. And I'm semi-joking because I don't really think it's about having a big ego, but maybe it's because I have the moon in the 5th house. It's like having a moon in Leo. Leo rules the 5th house. So maybe I have kind of covert Leo energy in my own way. But I don't go for that, and it's not even a debate. I just don't go for that kind of thing. And if you have this relationship with somebody and they have done this, and maybe they did it prior to this particular instance, and you forgave them and you trusted them, and they did it again, you're like, wow, maybe you're done now and you're ready to just move on. But this is, as a challenge card, it's saying that, you're having a difficult time, maybe letting go. Maybe because you are a fixed sign, maybe because you love the person. You can love somebody who screws you over. I mean, those things are not mutually exclusive, but it can be a work situation too. You may be moving on because someone or some situation felt like a betrayal. A lot of times it seems like, I would say one of the biggest things is when you feel like you have earned a promotion and then they give it to somebody else. But I was just saying this to another sign, I think yesterday, that be careful about those types of environments where you have to fight for a promotion and prove yourself, because they could be, it could be kind of like, crabs in a barrel, where they're trying to create this situation where everyone is like climbing over each other. And it's really like, the management, the company, corporation is doing that to get you in that mentality that you have to, it's like a dog-eat-dog environment. And that might be why you're feeling that sense of strife, because you don't like that environment. And I don't blame anyone for not wanting to be in that environment. At the base of this situation, I guess you would call it the root cause of all of this, the Fool card, which is the actual beginning of the tarot, the 0, in numerology, represents the unknown influence. I can't remember the exact phrase that they use. It's a really great phrase. But there's something very beautiful and mysterious about 0. Because it's like infinite possibilities. So you're getting this, so you probably are going through some kind of a shift and, you know, a new phase in some area of your life. And maybe you feel, oh, you know what I was just thinking? Yeah, you just had a lunar eclipse. So that'll do it to you, because that is an ending, a massive ending, Leo. You just had one on February 10th. And this is playing out over a series of months. You know, it's funny. I look at this card because I think of April Fool's Day on the 1st. Whether, you know, I associate this with Aries because of, you know, Aries is the first sign. And also Aries is an adventurous type of a sign. So who knows? Maybe after that new moon, it's like you press a reset button. And, you know, you're going to find that everything is changing. But what I'm saying is that that's the prelude, or this is the prelude to this. And maybe you sense it yourself because of that eclipse, is that set off everything. And now you're kind of like rebooted. And yet you have maybe these loose ends from your past that still need to be sorted out and dealt with. And this is actually the recent past for the last 3 months. This card is associated with Sagittarius, but it can be, you know, fire sign. I associate this one with Aries too, for the minor arcana, because I always think of knights. I think of the warrior and Mars being the god of war. But it is a fire sign energy, so you are, as a Leo, that's your element. And Aries, again, Aries and Sagittarius. For relationships, this could be that the person, this is like kind of talking about the situation. So you may have been involved with somebody who was, I'm going to say a womanizer without trying to bash men, only because the Knight I associate with men. It's a double masculine energy, the Knight and the fire. So I'm just going to say that, you know, and realize that it can be either gender. What's a female womanizer? A man-eater? But anyway, the type of person, I always say good time Charlie, that type of person who really was not interested in commitment. And maybe you thought that you were going to get commitment out of this person and you found out. So that could have been the sense of betrayal. And yeah, I mean, it makes sense. And for job situations, you may have felt even a little bit more. And I think that this is why you may have wanted to leave. You may have been feeling a little bit more assertive, but there's a kind of a chaotic tone to the Knight of Wands. So maybe you were a little bit. Maybe you had tolerated a bunch of crap and then you finally put your foot down. And that created this chain of events because they might have thought you were a pushover. And yes, it is hard to imagine a Leo being a pushover, but anything is possible. And they didn't realize they had awakened this beast. And so they pushed back. And then finally you just ended up leaving because it was just so awkward and unpleasant. And right now we have for you the Hermit card. So this is kind of like you being more in a reflective mood and maybe looking at what happened, being alone more. So if this was a romantic situation, kind of keeping to yourself, which is probably a good idea. This is associated with the sign of Virgo. So if there's a Virgo person, I guess you could be, and it could even be a friend that's a Virgo. But definitely, and you know, I was going to say too, with Venus retrograding in your ninth and eighth houses, that puts you in that more reflective and philosophical nature, where maybe you're kind of looking at things a little bit more on the spiritual end. Maybe you were like getting a little bit caught up in the world, and now you're like, wow, you know, you're being brought down to size. I forgot how they say that, but you know, and I'm just saying that in the sense that maybe you had this inflated sense of self, because maybe you had some successes, but you assumed that they were going to continue, and you weren't necessarily in the right place, or you assumed a relationship was going to be more than it ended up being. I know as a Sagittarius, a fellow fire sign, that we tend to be a little bit, we tend to exaggerate things. You know, fire can get very out of control very quickly. And it feeds on, you know, itself. We feed on enthusiasm, but sometimes, yeah, the expression is cut down to size. But actually, and you know, I'm saying that tongue-in-cheek because we are, you know, infinitely powerful beings. But in the worldly sense, sometimes, you know, they say the harder you ascend, the harder you fall. The higher you go, the harder you fall. And that's because, you know, especially if it's an artificial thing or if it's an ego thing, it tends to, you know, bring us those lessons to keep us in check. But sometimes we really need to heed the red flags. Sometimes people are not, you know, looking at what's happening and not seeing things for what they are. And in the near future, you have the Knight of Pentacles, so you may just roll up your sleeves, get down to work, and focus on your career. You may be, this is a good work card, so even if you've left someplace, you're going to probably land on your feet very quickly, and you're going to be working very diligently. That's what this card is about. Leos are known to be hard workers. You're also leaders, so you may have a position where you're in leadership, but this is more of a very plugging away at something material nature and being more serious about it. Again, I'm getting another, this is a earth sign energy. The other thing, that could be a Virgo person, possibly, that is coming into your life. Maybe you know this person already. And your consciousness on the psychological level, you have the star card, so you're feeling positive. Whatever has happened, you feel like you have a new lease on life, but in an inspirational way. This could be an Aquarius individual, and I mentioned swords, so I don't know if you have anybody in your life like that, but you feel like a sense of hope being restored. So maybe it has something to do with a career matter that comes in for you. Again, it may not be within the time frame of this reading. Maybe it will happen later in April. And for the first 3 weeks of April, with the sun in Aries, it makes a friendly angle to your fire sign, Sun of Leo. The trine is a very kind of an easygoing thing. You don't have to, it's almost like things falling into your lap, but don't ever, you know, assume that things will fall into your lap. It's always good to put in the elbow grease. And this is a card of elbow grease, by the way. The outside influence, there could be somebody who is either a Pisces, Scorpio, or Cancer person who may be interested in you, or if they're not those signs, they have this kind of a personality. They may be artistic, they may be soft-spoken, gentle, caring type of a person, wanting to get with you Whether you're interested or not, I don't know, but that could be somebody who is there waiting in the wings. For career matters, you may be doing something that is artistic. Leo is the ruler of the fifth house, and one of the areas of the fifth house is creativity. And so Leos tend to be naturally creative in some way, whether they're entertainers or, singers. Well, that's an entertainer. Or, I don't know, dancers. Madonna's a Leo, and she started out as a dancer and then she became a singer. You could debate whether she's a better dancer than singer. She was a choreographer too, I think. But in any case, that's something that I would say definitely, Leo, if you resonate with that, if you feel that you're creative, break out those paints, do those things, because you'll feel so much better. I sometimes wonder, Leo is associated with, I think it's associated with a lot of, I think it's a strongly sexual sign. And the fifth house is like recreational sex, and Mick Jagger should be the poster child as a Leo for that area. But sometimes I think that if you also channel that energy into creative projects, that you might be very inspired. So just a little thought about that. And then let's see these two cards. This is a card, it's either the higher message or what may be coming in for you. The Emperor card, this is associated with Aries. But as other characters in your life, this could be a military person, a police officer, somebody in those lines, or maybe even a judge. So it could be about somebody, maybe some of you are getting divorced, and that was what the Six of Swords represent. You're going to consult this kind of a person because you've decided that you're really ready for a change. I keep getting that Knight of Cups, and I was saying with the other readings that it's like a contrast. It's like you meet somebody and it kind of like changes your opinion about, maybe you always thought that all men were like kind of macho and insensitive, and you met this, well, this isn't this guy, but this guy, you met an artist, a sensitive artist and stuff like that, and so that kind of is piquing your interest. Now, if this person is actually, if this guy is a Pisces, that might be an odd couple for you in some way. It might initially be attractive, but it could be down the road, you could find out that actually you're more suited for a macho loudmouth, which an Aries person might be. This person can also be very rigid, like right is right, wrong is wrong, and in that sense be hard to deal with, because you may feel like they're judgmental, or that they don't like to have fun the way you do, but that could just be the kind of person you consult if you're getting divorced. In the work situation, sometimes maybe that's a mediator, or it could be somebody who, like if you're like working in a new job, it could be the type of job that you're doing. It could be something to do with law enforcement, maybe not as an actual officer. Maybe you're working the desk or doing something that deals with the issues, or even, I would say, even in politics, because an emperor is kind of like a civics leader or what have you. The outcome is the Wheel of Fortune, so it's like you're really aligning with a lot of the flow of good coming to you. And so that can be that can show, hey, you're really humming along, everything is going your way, you're getting all green lights in your life. It's just an affirmation that everything is going great. because you may have felt, and that's why when I get the Star card, I'm always thinking of things having been rough and then feeling like you're starting to have things go well. And it's like the Fool card, it's like a whole new cycle, and that's how the Wheel of Fortune, it's like a wheel, a cycle. And sometimes you're not feeling like at the top of the world, and now you are. So that's good, and good way to end the reading, Leo. So I hope you enjoyed this. If you'd like a private reading, please click on the link below. Otherwise, have a great rest of March, Leo. Bye.